Take your time.
Assalamu alaikum everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I really request all of you at the back to come up in the front, please. So it's easier for our guests to speak to you. Yeah. Just leave the front row here
Yes.
empty. आप लोग please आगे आ जाओ. आप लोग भी आगे आ जाओ.
Yep. Do you have a? I have one. I have one.
So before I introduce the speaker, how many of you are entrepreneurs? I know some of you are Plan 9 startups, but the rest of you? And you guys are looking to be incubated maybe? Yes? Cool. So I'm just going to advertise Plan 9 a little bit. I'm Zainab and I am the project manager at Plan 9, and we'll be opening our applications in July. So starting end May, started June, you guys can come over with your applications and we'll help you beef up your business models for the application so that to ensure that you get the spot next cycle. I'm going to quickly go forward without further ado and introduce Red Power, who's here from the US. As our speaker today, I want to, before I introduce him and allow him to come here, I want to thank Tinvi and his team at the US Consulate for introducing us to him and bringing him over. He's an entrepreneur, he's a writer, he's an author, he's done his gigs with the USAID, with the White House, with the Congress. I'll allow you to speak a little bit more about your experiences.
Okay.
So I'm really excited to hear what all he'll have to share with you guys. Please make notes, and I wonder if it's interactive, but stay for the Q&A so you guys can ask him a bunch of questions after he's done talking. So I'd like to invite you over. Thank you so much for being here with us today. Red Power.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here at Plan 9 and to be with you here today in Pakistan. So I'm going to have to echo what you said. All the successful entrepreneurs I know sit in the first row. So if you guys are back there, come on down. Let's fill in these seats down here so we don't have to shout at each other. This is going to be interactive. So how are you guys doing today? Great. That was not loud enough. How are you doing today? I know it's that afternoon. You may want some tea or coffee or something to get you going, but let's struggle through this. But come on down, guys. Come on down. We got 4 people right here. We got more seats on the front. I want to be able to see you. So, as the director said, I'm Red Power. I am an entrepreneur. I'm a writer, an author, a best-selling author, and most importantly, a speaker and business coach. And I'm here today to talk, and I'm in Pakistan at the request of the U.S. Embassy. So I want to thank the U.S. Embassy for bringing me. It's great to be with you here in Pakistan. I was telling a group this morning, I spent about 7 years in Central Asia. I lived in Central Asia for about 7 years, and I have done every stand, and the only one in my list that I hadn't done was Pakistan. So finally, after 15 years, I've got Pakistan checked off my list of places to visit. So I'm delighted to be here, and I'm really blown away by what's going on here in Pakistan, the ecosystem that I've found, the energy and the desire to do business. Only if entrepreneurs ran the world, we'd solve all the problems, right? So, all right, let's talk about today. I want to talk about 2 things. Number 1, why I became an entrepreneur. Number 2, some of the things that I think are important for success. And I think I'm not going to go through all. I've got 50 do's and don'ts, but I think that there are probably 10 or 15 that are the most important for you as you start your entrepreneurial journey. I know some of you have been in business for a couple of years, and some of you are just now starting. But I think it's worth going over some of these points. But I want to talk about entrepreneurship and what it can do for you and what it can do for the world. You know, there are 75 million young people like yourself, and I consider myself young, although I have a lot of gray hair. But there are 75 million, and that number is probably higher. It's probably closer to 90 million or 100 million people like yourselves who are unemployed around the world. And in some countries, I'm doing a project in Africa right now, in a country where there's 50% unemployment. And I think that's the case in a lot of countries, particularly with young populations. And so, you know, I think that the answer to that is entrepreneurship. Because what does entrepreneurship give us? Why would you guys become entrepreneurs? Why? Because it can give you what? Financial freedom, right? Right? It's also because nobody's going to, yeah.
Have an impact and solve problems.
Absolutely. It gives you options. If you work for somebody else, do you have options really? Not really. So entrepreneurship can give us options in life. So I'm going to tell you a couple things why I became an entrepreneur, and I think it's probably the reason why a lot of you are thinking about it or already entrepreneurs. Let's see. It's working. Perfect. So the number one reason I became an entrepreneur is because I wanted to be challenged. And who has a business now? Is it the hardest thing you've ever done?
Yes.
Did you work for somebody before?
Yes.
It's much harder, right? But is it harder in a good way?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's very satisfying. It's the most challenging thing that you'll ever do, but it's also the most satisfying. And I wish that more people understood that. So, but being challenged for me is something that I have a thirst for knowledge. I have a thirst to learn. And I have learned more about myself and what I'm capable of as a business owner than anything else I ever did. So number one, being challenged. Oh. Number two, building something that will last a lifetime. One of my motivations for being an entrepreneur was to build something of my own, something I could build my own legacy. And I distinctly remember the first time that I walked in a store and saw something that I had drawn on a piece of paper become a reality. On a box, on a shelf, in a major store. And that was mine. And no one is ever going to take that moment away. So the company that I co-founded still exists today, although we sold out a few years ago. And that's a company that I will always remember and cherish because it was something that we created. And we made it a significant company. Number three, you said something a few minutes ago that was good. Creating jobs and helping people. The first time that I saw the impact of what we had created on the families and the people that worked for us was really, really powerful. You know, when the decisions are on your shoulder and you make good decisions and you can support employees and their families, it's a very, very powerful feeling. That's the third reason why I became an entrepreneur. Number four, being the boss. Who here likes being the boss? Everybody? If you don't like being the boss, you shouldn't be an entrepreneur. All right. So you have control over your own destiny. When I work for somebody else, you know, my son is a very good football player, soccer player. And what I realized when I worked for somebody else, I wasn't going to be able to go see him play. I wasn't going to be able to see him do what he does every day. Right? Now as an entrepreneur, if I want to take the afternoon off to go watch my boy, I go watch my boy. And so I have control. Right? Number five, we talked about this a second ago, financial freedom. And not that this is all about money. I don't do it for necessarily for the money. But I do like the control. I do like the freedom. And I'm a little bit older than probably most of you. What I realize in life is that you don't have a lot of time. And so entrepreneurship, more than anything, is my time is mine and not somebody else's. And that's actually become more important to me than the money. Because I can design my work and my company around my time. So that was another motivation for me. I will never forget, now I don't know, she didn't say this in the bio, but my first company was a toy company, a children's toy company. And I'm not solving the world's problems, I'm not curing cancer, I'm not curing disease or hunger around the world. But what I found joy in was that I was making children smile. Now I know that children play with toys for about 5 minutes and then they move on to something else. But for just that few minutes, you know, watching a kid smile that was playing with a toy was very satisfying. So I like making products that make people happy, that solve a problem. And that's another reason why I became an entrepreneur. And number 7, ruling the world and increasing your personal power. Can anybody guess what I'm talking about? Any thoughts?
Ruling your current market that you are working.
What's that?
Ruling your current market that you are working.
Sort of.
Ruling your own self, the own world you have created around you.
That's close, yes.
Becoming the best version of your own self?
Yes, and yes, partly. What I realized...
Work on your exact business areas.
What's that?
Work on your exact business areas.
Sort of. I'll explain it. You can interpret that a lot of different ways. What I mean by that was what I realized. I was in my office one day, and my business is located in a very economically depressed part of my state, probably the poorest area in my state. And it was one of the reasons we located there, because we felt like the center of the toy business in the United States is either New York City or Los Angeles. But we wanted to locate in a place where we could be rock stars, right? Anytime I called the newspaper up, I could get a newspaper article. You know, anytime I needed access to somebody, I could get access. We were a big fish in a small pond there. In New York City, I'd have been a little fish in an ocean. So, and it was cheaper to operate from a business perspective. But one day I was in my office and my assistant comes in and she's panicked. She's white. She's turned solid white. And she says, "The governor is here." And I said, "The governor of what?" She said, "The governor." You know, and the governor, it's probably the same here, but politicians are hard to get in touch with, right? You can't go see the mayor or you have to have an appointment and get through security and all of this. And so my secretary is trying to make me understand what is happening. And all of a sudden, the governor sort of pushes by her and her staff and all of her people's security and all this. And the governor had come because we had become the fastest growing company in the state, and we had begun to get a lot of attention. And she had come in unannounced. She was running for re-election. She was coming down to talk in the area, and she had decided to stop by and question us about what we were doing and how we were doing it. And she wanted our opinions. And what I realized was that at some point, something had happened, and I all of a sudden had some voice. Right? I had some voice in public policy. I had some voice in what was going on around us. And so as you go down your entrepreneurial journey and you get some success, you can start to influence for good. You can start to influence the way things happen. And that's a position most of us never get into unless we get into politics or some other thing. You know, I wasn't born into money. I wasn't born into a rich family or a powerful family, and so that was interesting. It was an interesting thing. So, for me, entrepreneurship, these are really the reasons. And I don't think I knew this when I decided to become an entrepreneur. I've discovered this over time, that these are some really powerful reasons. And this is why I love coming out and talking to people like you guys, because I can share this with you and tell you what's in store. that these are the reasons I think you're going to one day wake up when you're my age and you just said, wow, that this was the right way. And this is why you start to understand why you do what you do. So, any questions so far? Thoughts? Okay. Let's get into some of the do's and don'ts. Like I said, I'm not going to go through all of them, but I am going to hit some of the ones that are very, very important. Now, I know, are all of you in an incubator or accelerator program? You part of Plan 9 or co-working space, that kind of thing? Okay. I know you've heard it 1,000 times, and I'm going to repeat it. You need a business plan. The reason you need a business plan, there are a lot of reasons, but I'll give you a few. Number one, businesses that have a business plan are 30% more likely to be successful and not fail. Now, not just any business plan. I'm going to give you an example. So I'm working on an accelerator and incubator in Africa right now, in Southern Africa. My consulting company has a contract for this. Now, I am helping teach the curriculum and develop the curriculum for it. I went in with my first cohort a couple of weeks ago. We sat down, and part of the requirement was to share their business plans with the organization. So we sat around with 12 new entrepreneurs. We looked at the business plans, and they all looked the same. Same language, same paper, same typeface. And I kind of had this funny look on my face after looking at them all and said, did you all sit together to type these up? And they said, no. There's a business down the street that writes business plans so that we can submit them to the bank. And I actually said, well, why don't you go get that guy, because I want him in this program. But the problem was that they didn't know their businesses. They hadn't thought through all the things that you need to think through in a business plan before you start a business. Now, there are a couple extremes. My first business plan was 600 pages. And what happened to me was it sat up on a shelf and collected dust. Eventually, at some point, I took it and kept the door open.